The Toronto Libraries have 6 youth zones, teen zones, in 6 branches of their libraries, and they're looking to figure out what kind of services they should be offering that will be most useful to the youth in the catchment areas. And the challenge was to figure out a way to provide that information.
So, round 2. My name is Jane, and she's already introduced herself. She's Philippa. I have a background in science and design, and I was interested in this project initially because as a youth, I didn't really use the library services, and that's a question I want to answer.
And my background is in public policy, and I also volunteer with the Toronto Youth Equity Strategy Community Panel, and we've done some work on the Toronto youth spaces. So I was interested in learning about the library youth spaces.
So the Toronto Public Library provides services for youth through youth hubs. Just a quick defining moment. So youth, according to the public library, is between the ages 13 to 19. According to Toronto, it's between, I believe, 16 to 29. So when we talk about youth in this context, it's between 13 to 19. So think of teens. And the youth hubs provide services after school hours in which youth can actually go and do homework. They have their own space. They can access computers to do research. There's also entertainment. They can play games, relax, and de-stress. So our main challenge, as Philippa already identified, was what are some of the gaps of youth accessing these services. So we spoke with Sylvia, our mentor, extensively and learned about the current situation, and we decided to look at it closely using this canvas. So this is called a value proposition canvas. Some of you may have seen this. It's a way to personally really understand your users. So we created a persona, and we called her Kim. So I'll walk you through this canvas. On the right-hand side, you really draw out to your user. So you look at the customer job, which means what are some daily tasks they want to accomplish. The pains are things that are barriers to help them accomplish those daily tasks. And the gains are what they want. On the left-hand side are your products and services. So how do these products or services meet the customer's needs? On the bottom, we have pain relievers. So how does this relieve the pain, and how does it create gain? And this is a messy process that we actually did for Kim. And so we want you to meet her.
Okay, so this is Kim. She likes pizza. She plays basketball, and she's in grade 10, so she's maybe 16. So some things that Kim does on an everyday basis include going to school, going to class, doing assignments, doing homework, training for basketball, hanging out with her friends in her free time. Some of the things that Kim doesn't like include hanging out with her annoying parents and her siblings, doing chores she doesn't want to do. She sometimes gets frustrated with the lack of money she has for going to the movie theater with her friends. And she also doesn't like thinking about the future, what she's doing after high school. So some things that she wants to include in her daily life includes having the resources to help her do her homework, keeping fit and healthy and having somewhere to play basketball, having a safe space away from her parents, and also having somewhere to hang out. So Kim lives in where the green dot is here, and her closest library is the Maria Shuka Library, which is right at Dufferin and Eglinton West. And this is her high school. It's the York Collegiate High School. So she lives about a 10-minute walk away from her library, and she goes to school about a 10-minute bus ride away from the library.
About 2 minutes. Okay.
So this is where our challenge comes in. What services the library can offer that can reduce the pains and increase the gains for Kim. So we found the main value proposition of the public library for youth is having free services. So there's no cost for the space or Wi-Fi. There's also staff and volunteers that act as allies, and there's access to computers, technology, and that sort of thing. So next we have the Toronto Youth Portal, which youth can access to look at all the youth services in their neighborhood. So we use the data from this site to create a map of the catchment area around the library for library staff to use to look at what other youth services are already offered in the neighborhood so that they can provide services that fill the gaps that are not offered. So our map is a very simple prototype, and there are a lot more layers that can be added, such as looking at the services that are offered already, looking at what times they're open, who they're eligible for, and that kind of thing. So for Kim's example, there were already 5 employment services in this catchment area, so perhaps this library branch would focus less on having career services, workshops, that kind of thing.
So what are some key insights we learned from this? One of them is that they're actually well-used youth hubs. They're not underused. So the question is, how do we increase access in terms of for people who are maybe not knowing about it? One key insight I learned from Sivia was that even though people ask for certain services, they don't necessarily attend them. So why is that? Maybe the question is how youth perceive themselves using the spaces. A lot of youth maybe perceive libraries as places where there's lots of books, right? They don't really see it as a social space, as a place for them to hang out and just do research or in general, but it's a way of how we ask this kind of questions. And so what are some of the next steps? Did you get that? Okay. So we could take this into civic tech to continue it. There's a lot of questions that are left unanswered because we need more research. And also, we really have to consider and go back and tie it back to the overall strategy of how does it reduce poverty. And that's a really big question in itself because there's a lot of loose ends in how we tackle this. So given that, if you're interested in participating or taking part, please contact us. Thank you. Thank you.